Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that I mute this so that we don't talk over everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me just fine. Just gonna do a quick sound check on this. Okay, fantastic. So that's good. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this morning's call from the WP Academy, Link Building Strategies to Move the Blogging Needle. It is going to be a fantastic discussion today. We are going to tell you what is true, what is not true, what is a waste of your time when it comes to the very topical discussion point of link building. I know that it can be confusing. I know it can be downright scary for a lot of you bloggers on the call, like, oh my God, what am I going to do to build these links into my site? Are they that important? Does Google really need these links? How do I do it? Separating the fact from the fiction. We have got some fantastic guests on here. I've known both Jim and Ann for a couple years. Fantastic professionals, very good at what they do. And what we're going to do today is we're going to try to just kind of separate the facts from the myths. We're going to go into some various strategies. We're going to try to get answered as many questions as we can. But I'm just going to go ahead and briefly kind of review what the kind of the webinar description is. So if you're on the call today, make sure that you're here correctly. We're talking about link building strategies to move the blogging needle. The description of our seminar is basically nothing causes bloggers more confusion, consternation, and downright angst than the process of link building. But links are not an optional companion to long-term ranking. When previously, when we always ask Google, hey, what do you consider the top ranking factors, supposedly, because Google has hundreds of them, they always basically say three things: contents, links, and they used to say rank brain, but there's a lot of discussion on that. But links is always in the top of the discussion, top of the funnel. We're going to talk about that today. So we're going to be talking today with two of the most successful and experienced link builders in the world, and that's Jim Boykin and Ann Smarty of Internet Marketing Ninjas. They're based in New York. So Jim, Ann, please welcome to the call. Introduce yourselves. Tell our crowd a little bit. Treat them as if they were six. What do you guys do at Internet Marketing Ninjas? Gosh, I want to make sure that it's not just me. Can you guys hear them okay? Okay, I think yeah, I don't think it's you guys. I think it's them. So we're going to have to look and see what's going on here. So I can't hear you guys at all. So we'll see what we can see. Okay, so while they're working on that, not Ann or Jim, no audio, can hear you, but not them. Yeah, Tony, I tell you, that's my wife's worst nightmare, is that only person that she can hear is me. So I do emphasize with you for the rest of you on the call. So we're going to work on that. I can't hear them. So unless you guys can hear them, your audio is great, though. Thanks for that. Can't hear. So they're still working on that, and we'll get it figured out. So kind of briefly, while we're talking about that, I know that there's a lot of bloggers on the call who struggle with link building. And so what we're going to try to do today is go over some strategies that you can prioritize at your end. We're going to talk about how you can reach out. We're going to talk about what Google is looking for with regards to intent. We're going to try to talk about good links versus bad links. And most importantly, I know a lot of you use Semrush. And one of the things that I always hear over and over again when we're doing auditings is, Casey, I ran a report at Semrush. I'm getting all these toxic links. Is this something I need to worry about? Okay, hey, I hear him. The man, the legend. Jim is actually, I can hear him now. So fantastic. I said toxic links and poof. Yeah. He's like Kaiser Soze, people.
And we're up. All right.
Kaiser Soze. So on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to Jim and Ann. They're going to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we're just going to get right into it and talk a little bit today about links.
All right.
Jim.
So briefly, I'm the CEO of Internet Marketing Ninjas. We've been in business for more than 20 years. We have about 50 people here in upstate New York in our office, and we do a lot of content creation and content marketing. So I think that the bloggers out there can appreciate our experience and the main focus of what we do. And we always can go into the details of what type of content and what is content. And the marketing is another way of saying trying to get links to our content. So that's a very heavy focus. That's why most people, they come to us, is they want, link building or content marketing. And the majority of our team is centered around those areas. And
And I'm Ann Smarty, and I actually started in SEO as a blogger, and that's where I got known. So I have a little bit of insight into that, how to build your personal brand to get invited to come to the United States, for example. How to blog your way to success, basically. And link building is a little bit different from what it was when I started, but I can still share some insight into how to do that.
Okay, great. So we're getting a couple questions about the volume. Like I said, I know that Ian and Jim are not as loud as me. Trust me. People tell me that all the time.
I
So
can
they're going to
speak
move the
loud.
mic to them, close to them when they're speaking. But I think you guys just turn up your volume a little bit and we'll be good to go. So Ian and Jim, today we're going to talk all about links. And we've got a lot of great questions already submitted. So we're going to basically get into that. But the very first thing that I want to do is more of a long distance discussion. Tell me a little bit how Google views links, because there's been a lot of quotes over the years about, for example, recently, Jim Mueller in a Hangout basically said that if you're trying to do anything overtly, and I have the exact quote here, it's from a Hangout. It says, if you're making quality links to your site, then that would be considered against our webmaster guidelines. And by that, those links would definitely not be considered quality.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, Jim, because he's basically saying that anytime there's an intent-based focus on the link, that would be against guidelines. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, the majority of people that are doing techniques to build backlinks are going to be doing some type of shortcut. There's things like private blog networks and sites that are just there for the purpose of guest blog posts and things that are like that. So the majority of techniques out there that people use are things that aren't going to have any value, and I see where Google's coming from. If you start with, hey, in order to have other people link to my site, I've got to create one heck of a resource. I've got to create something that's either uh, geared towards people that are going to potentially link to this. So maybe it's an educational piece, maybe it's a local piece, maybe it's a viral piece. But it can't just be anything that's so. It has to be stuff that is many, many times better than anything else out there, and it has to encompass not just words, but pictures and videos and targeting things like feature snippets. People also ask serving the user. Um, but content can be created with the goal of getting links. I think anyone who creates content, in the back of their mind, there's, I want to get links to this content. So the question is, how do you go about doing that, which is not going to get you in trouble with Google and have value? And so that's where we can do a deep dive into the marketing of that content. Um, but there's a lot of people that judge, you had said earlier about, toxic links, and there's a lot of people that they value links on things like domain authority or page authority, and that's one of the biggest problems with
Mm-hmm.
people that are analyzing their links today, is they're using those numbers. Now, personally, when we go to analyze backlinks, we're grabbing data from Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, Semrush, your Google Search Console, all of your referral links, and then we're taking that and organizing it to look for patterns and other items. But know that Semrush or Ahrefs and
Oops, Jim, you dropped out again. Nope, nope, can't hear you. let's see if I'm the only one. Just lost sound. Okay, so it's just not me. So Sue, Binky, thank you so much. So it looks like you guys just lost your sound. So as they figure that out, let's talk a little bit about what Jim was talking about, which was regards to link quality and those metrics. It's important that users understand that things like Moz, domain authority, page rank, things like that, those are, oh, I think you guys are back.
Hello.
Yeah, you guys just popped back in.
Our
So,
IT guy just being here, so.
yeah, that's it. So is he press? Yeah, again, I'm not sure if you're pressing mute by accident, but again, it's fine. Let's talk a little bit about those quality metrics. For example, we know that domain authority, Moz domain authority, that's an invented metric. That's just for Moz. Google doesn't use that. Google's come out and said many times, hey, that's a novelty metric. If you guys, it's a good way to classify bigger sites to small sites, but we don't use any sort of a domain authority metric and the like. Could you expand on that? How do you determine, because that's one of the questions we get all the time. How do you determine what is a good link? I mean, is it just a link that sends traffic? Is it a link that's just not no follow? How do you, when you guys are looking at it, you said you're looking at all these metrics. Can you provide a little bit of background on what you're looking to determine if this is a good link?
Sure. Well, I guess there's different types of links that we're going to aim to get. I guess there's two different methods. There's some of it we're going to write content and write a content piece, and then we're going to write to people to say, hey, notice you write about this particular content, or you have a content piece and found this really great resource. We think you should add it to the page. It'll help the users. And writing, and any site that we decide to write to, really the metric that we're going to use is, was this site put on the web to make the web a better place? Is this a natural resource? Does this site smell of SEO? Are they linking out to, you also can crawl a site and look at their external links of their other pages and see who are they linking out to? What is the anchor text? Are there reciprocal links? But a lot of what we're doing when we decide to write to someone is, is this a real person, or is this a real site? Is this a real resource? Or does it smell of SEO? Does it look like it's an SEO play? Either they're giving links to everyone and anyone, or they're doing stuff that's not natural in the eyes of Google.
Okay, and that's a very good point. So let's talk a little bit about what that might look like. Let's say that a blogger is approached, and there's many times that they're approached by email with a cold email, or they're even sent an email from a large firm like the Hoth as an example. Let's say that they're approached by email for these link building services. And a lot of those link building services are all about blog posts. So they're like, I'm going to get you, we're going to target specific anchor texts. I'm going to get you these links in these articles. When they're looking at these links, how do they determine, being, again, very uneducated with regards to this link building stuff, how do they know what the link that they're getting looks good? Does it pass the sniff test? Let's say that they're buying links in a blog post, for an example. And again, you're not supposed to buy links, but nevertheless, it happens.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So one thing is, we don't write to bloggers. That's, there's too much trouble in the blogosphere as far as things that are natural or not. If we're going to write to someone, often we've written an educational piece of content. We wrote something about, I'm just thinking of something that we wrote the other day that did really well. It had to do with the health benefits of wine. And it was for a site that had something to do with wine. And so, we wrote a bunch of different content pieces around wine. One was the health benefits of wine. Great big, beautiful long blog post, stats, studies, all that. And then we wrote to sites and pages where it would be natural for them to link to that. Like maybe they have a resource page about wine stuff, or there's something that makes sense where we're going to write to them and say, hey, notice that you have resources for wine. Here's another resource to add. But it would be a regular site, not a blog, like an existing page where they're already linking out to stuff that's within that topic. And again, I personally, and our team here is not writing to bloggers. We're looking for real sites that were put on the web to make the web a better place, and writing to those sites.
Okay.
When it comes to bloggers, that's often, we do other types of content as well, which sometimes is the same content, but we might write something that's more geared towards going viral. Maybe it's something like, things you didn't know about benefits of wine that you wish you did, or something, something geared a little bit differently.
Okay.
And that's stuff where we're doing things like, promoting it on Facebook ads, we're promoting it on Reddit, Stumbled Upon, which is now Mix. There's other types of advertising that we do to try and get it in front of the right audience. And then if a blogger naturally sees it and writes about it, because we've done something to put it in front of the blogger's eyes, maybe it's doing really well on Reddit, or we're doing some Facebook ads that are targeting that type of people. And if they naturally write about it, hey, that's great. Like, that's another whole type of link building, which writing something, getting it in front of the people that may talk about it, and then getting enough of them to talk about it. Andy, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can add a very, very quick tip here. If you're considering a particular blog to get a link from, let's not talk about how exactly we're doing that, whether it's a paid link, whether it's a guest post, whether it's a review or anything. If there is a blog that you think you will get a link from, and you're not sure if it's a good blog or not, first step, I would definitely check its rankings. Its history of rankings. Semrush has a great report on how it used to rank, how it is ranking now. Google is very good at identifying low quality content at this point. So if the history of that blog is pretty consistent throughout the years, it hasn't dropped any rankings, any major traffic drops or anything, you don't see that, chances are that's a good place to get a link from, because we want that link to send clicks to. That's the best link we can get, the one that gets us traffic. So that's the best way to go forward. The first step, just check whether it ranks or not.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do want to add to that, because one of the biggest metrics that we do use to measure the potential value of a website is we look at Semrush, or their organic value for a site. That's a big number that we use within our analysis.
Okay.
If we see that the organic, we also will look at backlinks. So let's say we find site A links to us, and then we look at, what are the backlinks to site A? If that site has, 1,000 backlinks to it, and it links to us, but that site A has an Semrush value of 0, that site's been penalized. And if you go to Semrush and put in the root domain and hit enter, and you look at the little chart, usually you'll see that it used to rank for thousands of phrases and had a bunch of traffic, and then boom, it's flatlined. And that's really interesting. Whereas if you look at Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, or any of those other places that try and rate a link with their domain or page authority, I don't believe in that nearly as much as I believe in Semrush, their domain value.
Okay.
Or organically. And
okay, that's a very good point. So let's apply that on the page level for the typical blogger. So if you're a blogger on the call and you're thinking, okay, maybe I'm looking for link targets, you should be putting those domains, possible target domains, into Semrush and looking at that metric. I know a lot of bloggers on the call are using Semrush. And also, again, that's a good way to qualify if someone is sending you a cold outreach email as well, right? We're going to put the domain that they want to use, or asking you to provide a link to, or even consider changing links with. We're going to pop that link into Semrush so that we can evaluate the, like you said, the bottom line monetary value of that domain as well.
And there can be good sites with a low Semrush organic value. If there's a site that's like, I don't know, a Cub Scout website, or someone who collects rocks or something, they may not rank for commercial phrases in Semrush. But if you look at the chart, they've kind of always been low. And that's, if their value is low, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If the site has natural links and it just doesn't rank for commercial phrases, that's still okay. But if you see that, this site with all these backlinks should have a way higher value, and you look at the chart and you see the crash, because here's an interesting thing. So Marcus Tober from Search Metrics, in one of his talks, I guess a little over a year ago, he was talking about how 89% of the sites that used to rank no longer rank today. And they got all their ranking data from 7 years ago, and they looked at sites that ranked in the top 30 for any phrases. And then they looked at how many of those sites still rank today within the top 30 for any phrases. And only 11% of the sites were left. Now, some of the sites may have gone dead or redirected, but a lot of those sites have been penalized. They don't rank for anything like anymore. And so that's why the organic value is something that, you know, I used to have slides during my presentation where I'd be like, look at this site here, look at this page where people are have ads on, and you know, according to all these other page metrics, you know, the domain authority is huge, the page authority is huge, but then you look at the Semrush value and it's like 0. And it's like, you know, and that's the thing where 89% of sites that ranked 7 years ago no longer rank today, and that's why a lot of those other metrics aren't good, because they're not showing, are those sites performing in Google? And that's why I love the Semrush organic value to judge a site. But if a site has never been hit and is just a hobby reel site, then it's okay if the value is low.
Right.
But, you take a huge site with, you know, thousands of backlinks, and if the value is 0 or really low, and you look at the chart and you see that it used to be worth a lot and it's not, those are penalized.
Okay, very, very good point. We're going to get into some questions here really quickly. Stephanie Keeping submitted a question here. She has a fantastic site called copycat.com where she talks about kind of like popular fast food and dishes, and then she replicates and recreates the recipe on your site. Like if you wanted to have a Baconator, for example, she probably has a recipe there. We could probably replicate the Baconator. And she has a really good question. She says, well, what about link building strategies for bloggers who are already content quality and reader focused? And let me kind of explain that a little bit. And again, I do a significant amount of auditing within the recipe, do-it-yourself and lifestyle niche. The problem is that they're trying to pull in links based upon their recipe first content. A lot of them have tried to expand over the years and put things like how-to resources. In many cases, it's the same resource. You know how many times I don't know how many audits I've done where they've got a how to be a food blogger resource. And as you can imagine, that those resources do not do well because there are so many of them and because relatively they're all the same. And of course, there's always the Bluehost recommendation for hosting, which to me immediately takes down the quality considerably. But some of them have tried successfully to expand over the last couple of years. They put in detailed guides on gluten-free dining. They've put in guides on what you should look for if you're eating out on a budget, things along those lines. So what can they do once they have this content? What can they do to kind of push that out? And I know, Ann, you've talked a little bit about where can you reach out to places to push this content out other than what most bloggers do now, which is publish it, share it on Facebook, Pinterest, have an optimized long pin and call it a day.
One thing I've always suggested doing is to create content with links in mind. If you want to get links, you create content that creates those links. One of the lowest fruit opportunities is to pursue broken link building, which is huge in blogosphere because blogs just go down and resources get returned for errors. So creating content and then pursuing those backlinks is the most effective way to get links in blogging, because there are so many broken resources in the blogosphere these days.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because most of the bloggers on this call have no idea what broken link building is.
Sure.
So let's dumb it down, and we're going to treat everyone like they're 6-year-olds, like my wife talks to me. Very successful.
Yep.
How would you go about telling a blogger who's never heard of that term, broken link building? Sure. How would they go about doing it?
So let's put this very simple. You know a blog, and it's been for ages. It's been around for ages, but one day it goes down. The blogger quits, dies, God forbid, whatever happens. Life happens, right? So that blog is no longer there, and it's about the same thing, pretty much the same thing that you were writing about. So you grab those, you go to Wayback Machine. You just can Google that.
And that's archive.org, folks. Archive.org.
Right. You bring that blog back up to see what it used to be, and you try and build the best your own content on your site, which can be better than the one that blogger had. And you go out, see who linked to that blog. Semrush has backlink reports, right? Semrush. So you check backlinks that go to that blogger. Chances are those links will be to those broken guides, referencing how-tos. The first step would be finding the resource on that broken blog that has the most backlinks. And you build the same resource but better on your own site. Don't copy, just build it, write it your own one. And you go to every site that links to that blog, try to find the contact information on that site and say, hey, you are linking from this page to this resource, but unfortunately it's no longer there. Here is mine. I even updated it with the most recent information, mentioned something that makes you stand out. For example, try different templates, try different ways to approach those who link to the broken site, and you claim those links. Why I'm mentioning this in this particular case, again, in Blogger sphere, there are so many broken links. There are so much outdated content that you can go ahead and update. So that's the lowest hanging fruit. But you need to first find what's broken. So it's not exactly building links to existing content. You need to build that content to target that opportunity, but maybe you already have something to offer on that broken link.
Right. So, for example, as you guys were talking, I pasted over a couple examples of what I would consider very strong examples of inbound marketing content. We call those. You could use the term link bait. These are very high-level pieces of content that bloggers have spent time putting on their site for the very reason of pulling in links when possible. So we've got one on here from Champagne Tastes. Sarah, fantastic blogger. She has a resource on here on how to drink bourbon. And I don't know about, I think Jim is on that. Jim and I, even Ann, we're very pro spirits. I'm very pro whiskey and bourbon. So this was a fantastic guide that I loved because it told me everything I wanted to know about bourbon. And I considered myself pretty experienced, and there was a lot in that guide I did not know. And so I bookmarked it, and I've even linked to it a couple of times myself. If you were to go and take that link and put it in a backlink checker, and if there's a couple free ones that we can share, we'll do that in the comments, you would find that it's done extremely well for Sarah. It has pulled in some very good links, and she can continue to update and republish this content long-term forever. It's everything you'd ever want to know about drinking bourbon. She's a food blogger. And then what she's done is she's also put in some of her bourbon-based cocktails in that piece. That's the kind of stuff that I use as an example in my audits all the time. It's very, very well executed.
Yeah.
She's even gone in now and added a little bit of extra schema into it. She's added some itemless schema to possibly pop in that post into carousels on Google. Very, very well done. And then the other example that I pasted was one from an old site of ours, doubledtrailers.com. It's old, several years old, but the thing still generates a ridiculous amount of traffic. And if you were to type in horse facts into Google, it's on page 1. It might even be in the top 3 still. And you would be surprised at how much traffic you get for a keyword like horse facts. And it's basically just these bizarre, crazy facts about horses, and people link to it like you wouldn't believe. And those are the kind of things that we're missing on a lot of blogs. Those are the kind of things people say, well, I'm a blogger and I'm already publishing this high quality content. Well, if it was super high quality content, people would want to link to it.
Yeah.
We really want to talk about that. So that's kind of the thing. Look at those examples there, and then we'll get into that. So Ann did a good job publishing the tips on what we want to do to reach out for that content. We also want to talk very quickly, and I know this is a great question for Jim. We had a question here regarding domain authority and page authority. Which rank is more important when considering the value of a backlink, domain authority or actual page authority? If PA has more link, does DA have any value? And I think we briefly touched on that, but very briefly again, Jim.
Stop looking at those numbers. They don't mean anything. No, I don't believe in those numbers at all. Again, I would look at the Semrush organic value and see if they've taken a hit. If the link is real and natural, that's great. Like, and I think Ann had touched on, like, if you want to get the links, you gotta write. Something.
Drop.
If you're a food blogger, there's only so many places that you can write to about any particular sandwich. But if you say, all right, I'm going to write, the ultimate bacon fact page. And on
Mhm.
that page, I'm going to link to all my burgers that have bacon in it as well to get that juice to those power. I'm going to write about cholesterol. I'm going to write about the history of the fast food business. I'm going to write about franchising. I'm
Mhm.
going to expand, because if you keep it so narrow, there's only so many people that would have the potential to even link to you. But once you start to go, cholesterol, you're going to be writing to different kinds of sites than you would think of, as a food blogger. And if you write about fun things to do with food, or I don't know, the franchising or running a business or the assembly line or things like that, like there's other topics you can write about, and then there's a whole different group of people that you can write to. And so, yeah, and anyone that you're going to write to, I guess I would look at it only as, is the value real? And and one of the biggest things that haven't been mentioned yet, and I know Ann talks about this as well, is will it get clicks as well? As it's another interesting thing when we analyze someone's backlinks to determine, is this good or bad. One of the things that we look at is, in our own tools, we pull in the analytics. And so, what if a link has never brought a click? Is that even a link?
Mhm.
If no one's ever clicked on it? And is a link that's been clicked 30 times, is that worth more than a link that's only been clicked on twice? So
And
I
that's
guess,
a good question. I mean, I'm of the belief that a link has more value when it actually is clicked on or when it sends traffic.
yeah,
So that's certainly something that we would want to try to track or qualify whenever possible. Very, very important.
yeah.
Okay, so you brought up a good point about making sure that your links, that your content has value. You guys are probably familiar with Jason, and please correct me if I'm mispronouncing his last name wrong. Asidri, Jason Kaiser the Sage. You're probably familiar with Jason Asidri. I don't know if you guys have seen him. He's a very well-known SEO based in the Philippines, but he is really good with link building. And one of his resources is called Audience First Link Building. And I would probably say conservatively, it's one of the best link building resources I've ever visited or ever personally read. And the whole premise of the link resource is audience first marketing, which is that your links need to fulfill a purpose, which your content needs to fulfill a purpose. And that intent driven link building has been the focus of their agency, and that's been why they've been so successful. I've linked over that. I've linked over a resource there for you on the call, so you guys can take a look at that. Well worth your time. Now, we have a question here. How do you track that? And I believe that she's asking, how do you track clicks from links? So let's talk a little bit about that. How can you track? How would you know that if a link isn't sending you traffic or not? Is there a very simple way for a blogger to be able to track that?
Um, we have our own tool. It's ninjabacklink.tool.com.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to push that, but in there you connect
What's
it
the
to
full
your
URL
analytics.
there?
I believe it's ninjabacklink.tool.com.
Okay, I'm going to pull it up here.
And on that particular tool, you connect it to your analytics. So when that tool pulls from Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, you upload your Google backlinks from Google Search Console, and it also looks at all your referring links. So another source that we look at to get backlinks is where are your referral links. And we also hook in the analytics so we can look at what links are getting traffic or not. One of the first filters that I put in when I go to analyze links is, let's start, if I were to just set up one filter to look at, I would do lots of filters, but one filter is, let's look at all links that have never brought a click and all links that are worth $1 or less in Semrush. And let's start the analysis there. That's one of the ways that we would look.
Well, it's funny. I tried to taste that over and YouTube bumped me out. So while you guys are talk a little bit about, I'm going to give you a question to answer while I try to get this stuff up. So the question that we're going to talk about is Medium. We had a question earlier submitted about using Medium for link building. And the question is as follows. I have a recipe cooking blog, but I've considered using medium.com to write about food related topics that are not necessarily a good fit for my blog readers. Food policy, food waste, etc. Topics for which there will probably be a natural opportunity to link to something on my blog. will that link provide any benefit since it will be a medium.com address, even though technically I'll be linking to myself? And the reason that this is important is, as you guys know, Medium is no follow. So I guess the question is what benefits could he have for cross-promoting that content on Medium? And you guys can talk about that while I attempt to solve my YouTube issues here.
I mean, in a perfect world, if you're writing that type of content, I'd rather it be on your own site so that anyone that links to it or mentions that you're getting that link. I can understand the advantages of putting it on Medium where you're going to get more views and more eyeballs. The link is going to have zero value because it's no followed. I'm personally of the belief that if a link is no followed, there's no value, at least as far as SEO juice flowing. Now, of course, if people are on Medium and they read it there, and if they end up going to your site and then writing about your site, that's great. But I guess I personally wouldn't put that content on Medium. I'd put the content on your site, maybe do something briefer in Medium. I'm not as familiar in Medium.
Okay.
I have my own way to use both Medium and LinkedIn long form posting. I don't do it for backlinks, not to get links back to my site, but rather to get mingle with other content creators and get my content out there. On Medium, you can actually publish your content. It doesn't have to be original because you can use the URL to link canonically to the original.
Yeah, it has built-in canonical options. So yeah.
So you can publish your guest posts there and keep them somehow on your own platform and link back to your original content there, just to have to build yourself a good, solid portfolio as a writer. So it's more about networking than getting links from that. It's very similar to how you would use Facebook, Twitter networking, anything. You build content there for the sake of getting your name out there and get into the community of established writers and get yourself build yourself a name. So that's how I would use that platform too, not necessarily for getting direct backlinks, but rather to get.
So let's recap that really quick. So Medium for link building. Medium is no follow, so the links back won't generate authority, but it could generate traffic. You can consider republishing on Medium because it has built-in canonicalization. You can have a canonical tag pointing back to your sites. You could use Medium to increase exposure and allow you to build a new audience. So be aware of that, guys, if you're considering Medium in the future. Now, we had another question here very quickly. It's about brand mentions, and I know that this comes up quite a bit, so let's talk a little bit about brand mentions and link building. If your website is only mentioned on another well-known website, does it have SEO value? So it isn't a real link, just text. So, and he provides a sample sentence. I found this great article about dogs on example.com. So brand mentions. Now, I believe that Google's actually come out and talked a little bit about this recently. Do you guys have some thoughts on that? What exactly has Google said about brand mentions and the ability, whether or not, I mean, clearly that's an unlinked mention is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What would we do there?
In our own tool, we do look at brand mentions, and it's part of the analysis. However, and I'm a believer that brand mentions are worth a link.
Okay.
I was discouraged. There was about 6 months to a year ago, this was brought up in a Facebook group, and Bill Slosky, who I give tons of respect to, he knows all the Google patents, believed that mentions didn't have value and cited some Google patents. And so I guess no one really knows. I guess there's data on both sides. I personally believe that a mention on another site, even if it's unlinked, has value. But Bill Slosky did posts about how some of the patents, there is no value. If it's not a link, it's not a link. So.
Okay. So, and again, Google has actually come out and said that if you guys type in brand mentions in Google, and John Mueller, there's some quotes out there about that they do consider those a signal. And whether or not they're unlinked or not, that provides some value to the average site. Now, clearly, if you're a link builder, we would want to try to convert those brand mentions from unlinked to linked whenever possible. So it's something to be aware of. But I mean, overall, it's just one of many many strategies that you'd want to be aware of.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know what's interesting, Casey, that as long as we're talking about links, there's another topic that really hasn't been mentioned, but it should be part of the conversation, and that's who you link out to.
External links.
It's not just who links to you. Another part of your neighborhood in the eyes of Google on even a page level and a site level is who you link out to. And I think there's a lot of people that their beliefs are based on old ways of doing things, where people are afraid to link out to other sites because they might be leaking page rank.
Like footer links. That's why we're, as a site auditor, I'm very against footer links, especially if there's 3, 4, or 5 of them on the footer site wide. So, but take those out of the equation. You're talking about linking out when it makes sense to users, or even comment links.
Yeah, we had an interesting thing happen where we did a content piece a little over a year ago, and we did the marketing on it, and honestly, it didn't do all that great with the marketing, and I was disappointed with it. And that person came back to us a couple weeks ago and said, "Hey, that content piece that you did is performing absolutely amazing. It was something like 43 things to do in specific city." The page was huge. It had close to 4,000 words. It had, I think it was something like 16 pictures. No, it was like 41 pictures, 8 videos.
It's very, very long form content.
Very long form. And it's something where if someone ran a search for what to do in this particular city, we know that it was a good page. We knew that people were scrolling down. We know that the engagement was good. We know that any where people were going after that was not back to a Google search. Like, it really answered the question. And it's now, I think it's like 9% of the site's traffic, which is a huge number for a pretty popular website. And it ranks for 1,005. In any case, the page does incredible without links. Oh, the page also had 102 external links on it. And that's the point that I'm trying to bring up, is that there's other ways you can get in the right neighborhood. You should not be afraid of linking out to other sites and other resources. You want to get your site positioned in the right neighborhood. It's harder to get other sites to link to you, and still is the most valuable piece of the equation. You ask, are links important? Yeah, they are. Without links, you're often not going to rank. And how you continue to rank often has to do with your the usability of the page.
Sure. Does it load fast?
Yeah.
Did you lazy load those images as an example?
Are people
things like that.
searching and landing on that page and then going back to Google, or are you solving all their the query intent of whatever they're searching for?
Right.
But who you link out to, I guess, is a part that a lot of people don't realize the value of that, and about how getting your site or your page into the right linking neighborhood isn't just about who links to you, but who you link out to. We've done things where we've taken product pages for clients and gone in and, not only do we add more content, but within that content, we're going to add 3 to 10 external links. And we have this before and after tool, and you definitely see the effect of what those external links does with putting that page within the neighborhood. So
Got it.
I just wanted to throw in the external links are really important and shouldn't be overlooked. You should link out to other sites. You should link out to other pages that are relevant to a page, and don't be afraid to. It's going to help you.
Got it. Very good point. So let's talk a little bit about that, because external links can also kind of dovetails into our next question here, which is kind of a reciprocal linking question. This is about a program. This is about I, again, work with a lot of food bloggers. They sometimes will network together with each other and do a lot of shared link pieces, a lot of reciprocal linking strategies. One of them is a blogger event called Brunch Week, and it's with the hashtag Brunch Week. And it says, here's the question: when doing events with other bloggers, such as Brunch Week, where there is a long list of HTML links, should those links be follow or no follow? And then part 2 is, can Google penalize you for follow links and a link list for an event post. And I'm going to give you an example of this kind of post. I'm going to go ahead and pop it in here to both our chat, and I'm going to go ahead and pop it in here into the YouTube chat as well, so you can take a look at it.
Sure.
And you can see here that in this case, the blogger has, I believe correctly, no followed everything. But you can see that if you look at the post very quickly, this is more of kind of an advertorial or a sponsor thing where people behind the scenes are paying for products or other things to be featured in this brunch week example. And then all these bloggers are linking back and forth to each other with long lists. And you can take a look at the link if you get a chance. But it's just a long list of bloggers linking back and forth to each other. Now, what does Google say about those kind of reciprocal linking? I'm not going to call it a scheme,
Sure.
but it really is. What would they say about that?
Sure. Well, let's look at a couple things here. So who links to you is the most powerful piece of the equation. Who you link out to is part of the equation as well. Who you reciprocate with is, in a sense, it's your closest neighborhood. So if you link out to 100 websites on your site, let's say across your site, you link out to 100 other websites. If all those 100 other websites all link back to you, that's easy for Google to figure out that you're doing something that's not natural, and to basically negate all of that. If you have 1,000 external links, and maybe if 100 are reciprocal, but they're right within your neighborhood, they make sense, they're good sites, then that can be a good thing. Now, who you link out to is something that can devalue your site. If you're linking out to a whole bunch of other sites or pages that have been penalized in Google, that says a lot about your site in the eyes of Google. So part of the value of a page is not only the words and the content and the backlinks in, but part of it is the links that are on that page and how trusted are those links. And so if you're linking out to a bunch of people via people that are doing SEO stuff, and a bunch of those sites end up getting penalized in Google later, then it's going to lower the value of your pages as well. So who you link out to does matter. You should definitely audit or look at who you link out to. And again, that magic number to look at is that Semrush value. And again, if a value is low in Semrush, the organic value, it's okay if it's like a hobby site, but 98% of the time, if the domain value is 0 in Semrush, the site's been penalized in Google.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, is that if it looks, I think one of the things is visually, does it look natural to you? I mean, if I come to a site and I see that, okay, I'm reading this, and all of a sudden I go to the bottom and there's like the 100 inlinks. Inlinks is a very spammy link up tool. If there's 100 inlinks links at the bottom to all these other sites, does that make sense for the user?
Yeah, and Google will be mapping all of that. I mean, you got to think a couple levels away. And we have tools where we look at all the people that link to you, then we look at all the people that link to the people that link to you, and look at the patterns in there. That tool is private. But that Google's looking at that as well, a step away. And then if Google says, hey, this is an unnatural pattern, and I'm not as familiar with all those links, but if it appears to be something that is not natural, then yeah, I would no follow it.
Okay. Okay, that's a good point. So let's move on. We got several other questions here. This will be a good one for you. It's homepage versus deep link building. I know you guys have a lot of experience. It says my site's top 20 money pages are geo-targeted articles about a local service, each with a unique content, 2,300 words in each case, surrounding the location-based keywords. While the broad keywords for this service can also be searched regularly, there is definitely a much higher keyword search volume for the local terms, and these pages actually bring in some money for us, affiliate income. A visitor could land on my homepage and find the city they are looking for within 1 to 2 clicks. Should I focus my quality link building on the homepage branding with the theory that a rising tide lifts all boats? Or do I have to build local individual links to all those money pages I want to move the needle for? What would you consider there? Let's talk a little bit about, let's just talk a little bit about the homepage versus deep linking. Can they just build links to the homepage, or should they be building into those money pages specifically?
Yeah. Ideally, I would try and get as many sub pages of the site to get backlinks as possible. If you have 1,000 backlinks to your site and they all go to your homepage, it says your content is empty.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would definitely encourage, the homepage is usually going to be the most valuable page. It's going to be the page that has the most backlinks the majority of the time. But you've got to build subpages. I mean, no matter what your site is, if you're trying to build links to your homepage, there's only X amount of sites that you can write to that would link to whatever category your homepage is. I'd be done in a day. And be like, all right, if link building is important to me, I need to start writing other stuff that's going to attract backlinks, and I'll use that content to internally link to my content where I'm trying to push that power to. But no, I wouldn't. Of course, building links to the homepage is always important and good, and usually that encompasses your biggest phrases. But if none of your subpages have content, it's telling Google that your content is empty, and
got it.
Stronger with a.
So bottom line, deep linking whenever possible, not necessarily just to the homepage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it also leads to, I guess there's other theories is, a lot of the web Google doesn't. They used to have the supplemental index. Google knows of a huge part of the web, but there's a much smaller group of web pages that actually rank for stuff. So there's the whole web, and then a small group of stuff that ranks for anything in Google. And a lot of that stuff is no more than 2 clicks away from anything that has a backlink. In other words, buried pages that are, no one links to the pages that link to it. No one links to this page. Like, that's normally stuff that is not going to be on that smaller scale. So you want to have as many subpages as possible to have backlinks.
Fantastic. Very, very good point. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about comments for link building. I know that I still get a lot of questions on that. Do you have any thoughts on that? We know that comments are predominantly no follow, and you've already said that, well, if a link is no follow, there's really very little value there from a link building standpoint. Would there be any other benefits for someone trying to leave comments? And this would be good for you. Maybe there's a community-driven aspect there where someone is using comments clearly if they're using it as their predominant form of link building, probably not good long-term, but are there some benefits there?
I would discourage using comments as link building method, even if it's like 1/10 of your link building efforts. Just don't do it. It's a waste of time. I don't think Google really use those links as real backlinks. They are very good at identifying that's a comment link. Another thing is that it's a good networking tool if you want a guest post position on a huge site. Just keep being active there and post comments if you can. That's a good trick to get known and get invited to do your own guest post. That's how I managed to secure some of my best platforms where I contributed to. So it's a bottom line, not for link building. If there is a comment field and you have something to say, by all means do that, but not for the sake of a backlink.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, good clarification. And I've commented in the chat here that as a site auditor, when we're going through and running a crawl to find broken links, comment links are predominantly the biggest source of broken links on any audit that we do. And as Jim has said, it's very important when you're linking out externally, you're looking at neighborhoods, but we're also looking at the UX, the bottom line UX. I don't want to have a page with 40 or 50 broken links. And there's many times when we'll run an audit and we'll see a ridiculous amount of comment links that are broken. Well, in many cases, there's actual automated ways that you can go in and remove all those broken links. And I've linked over to an option there from the blogfixer.com that allows you to do that. And I'm all for that. Again, I don't believe it's impossible to remove all broken links because, again, it's every time we try to do that, something else pops up. But it would certainly something that you should try to minimize and triage at your end whenever possible. Let's go ahead and talk about the next question. It's about scaling link building. And I know, again, with the large amount of campaigns, Ann and Jim, you've both done, this should be a good question for you. How do you scale the backlinking process, especially for multiple clients in multiple businesses, which is the bottom line, what you do on a daily basis? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, we found that there's only so far that you can scale, at least with our company. So I think 2 years ago was the first time we set a limit as far as how many links that we're going to build. By build, I mean after writing to people or doing things, the amount that come in. Because you can't, years ago we'd have other companies come to us and they're like, hey, we want to buy you, and we're going to send in 10 times the amount of clients, 10 times the amount of work. And it's like, no, like you can't scale great link building. So I think like two and a half years ago, we set a number. We said, maybe it was even the year before that, but it was actually 4 years ago. We said, here's how many we're going to do this year. And then the following year, we did a little bit more. And then we kept that. And then we went down a little bit this year. But it's like, I found that you can't scale it. There's only so many great sites you can write to. There's only so many great resources that you can write. I guess the question is, I haven't found a good way to scale real link building. There's only so much you can do in keeping the quality real as well. So we've had about 50 employees at Ninjas for the past 4 or 5 years. We've limited our size. We've limited the amount of work that we'll actually do. We've had a waiting list for the most of the past 3 years because we won't do more. We can't do more. If we did more, it would start to get spammy.
Got it. Makes sense.
Keep it real. You can't. We have a limited set of clients. We have a limited amount of work, and we won't do more because I don't want it to get spammy.
Fantastic. Very, very good point. Let's talk a little bit about the really interesting question here on pre-launch link building. Someone is getting ready to launch a site. What can they do, if there's anything, that they can help them build backlinks prior to a site going live? And I assume that, well, if the site has to go live for there to be something to link to, but maybe there's some pre-planning, some foundational steps that they can put in place.
Sure.
Is that something you can comment on?
If you were to think about what content that you want to write and start from there, a lot of people, there's different tools. What's that one?
Answer the public.
Thank you. Answer the public.
There you go. Yeah.
There's other
Answer the
tools
public, by the way.
around.
Yeah, Answer the Public, by the way, currently is only available to UK subscribers. So, I mean, it's certainly less valuable as it was before, but it's still a great tool for those of you on the call who want to use.
We have a tool too that's free.
Yeah. Hey, I want you to link over to that. Link over to the tool here so we can share that.
Over that link.
Pull that over. So go on, Ian. I'm sorry for
Google
interrupting.
Suggest tool. If you search for Google Suggest tool in Google, you'll find it as well. It's on SEO chat. But in any case, a lot of people, when they look at the keyword universe, like everything starts with keywords. And a lot of people, when they look over the keyword universe of what stuff that they want to target or what stuff that they want to write, a lot of times they focus on more the commercial side of the content. And often they leave out the informational side. And I guess the first step is, you want both. You want that commercial stuff or the high value stuff to write about, but you also want that how-to stuff, the informational core stuff that may not have, if you're doing your keyword research and you're looking at search volume and cost per click, that's kind of the stuff with the high value, your commercial stuff, and maybe the stuff with the lower search volume or lower cost per click, the informational stuff. A lot of people just push that aside, and it's like, no, you need that stuff too. You need that stuff because that's the stuff that people are going to link to and they're going to talk about. And so, I guess if I were starting to blog from scratch, or even if I had one, I would start with, let's look at whatever my topic is, what are all the keyword phrases? And some of these are going to be informational stuff. And I guess everything you write could have a different audience. This stuff is being written for an audience of, teachers and schools. This stuff is going to be an audience more of the link baity stuff, the stuff that we want to go viral, or this content is geared more towards this local market. But I would, start with all the content and then maybe come up with a list of all the stuff you're going to write and what is the purpose of that, and what is the stuff that you're going to do some outreach for to try and get other people to link to it as well.
Okay, and on that topic, I know Denise has another question here. What are some ways to promote pages with great resources so that we can get those to rise in the SERPs a little quicker? How would you go about that? If someone has a great resource that's underutilized on the site, especially for bloggers. I know this is an issue, and I know you have some great resources on outreach. What can we do? What can they do to push these little push marketing at their end to get these resources in front of as many eyes as possible?
The first step, and it's very obvious, but it's very often missed, is to identify which keywords you want it to rank for. Because there are so many great resources that have nothing, no queries to rank for, so they're not found because of that. So identifying keywords with not too high competition, but with a good search volume is your first step. And then the outreach. And you can talk on that for ages, but the best tip, and again, I'm here with a very low-hanging fruit opportunity comments, but what I always do, I check common connections. If I want a link from some media outlet or blog, I'm checking if there is anyone I know or anyone I know who knows that media outlet. One first tool to check is LinkedIn. That's the only way I'm using it. The platform. I've been there for ages. I add everyone to my contacts. I never check my messages there because they are like there is a lot of going on there. But it's a great tool. It's a great tool to find connections. So that's the first step. I always check, hey, I want to link from this article, and this article is on Mashable. Who do I have on Mashable? And LinkedIn would show me all the names who currently work or ever worked at Mashable. And then I go ahead and check their emails if I can find them. Maybe I already had some conversation with them. So I check my inbox, I check Twitter if I'm following them or they follow me. So that's part of the way to that link. And now that I know, hey, I have this person, this contributor's email, and I can email them and say, hey, who can I contact within this organization to get me that backlink? And it's the most efficient way to get a backlink from any huge site that you're targeting. There is a lot of, there's cold emailing, everything, all of that works. If you do that consistently and you play with the templates and you find something that works. I do add people to Twitter lists based on where they can get me links from. I keep interacting with them on social media. I email and follow up. All of that works, but the first step for me is always checking, hey, do I know anyone there? And chances are there is second tier connection with someone I'm interested in terms of a backlink or a contribution opportunity or anything like that.
Fantastic. Very good review there. Thanks so much, Ann. Okay, so we're going to get into the topic that, again, probably the most popular question that I personally get in audits, that I continually get online when I'm answering questions in the various forums. I know it's not you to you. It is about the disavow file. We're going to talk a little bit about that right now. We get questions, and this is just another one. This is one of many that we had submitted, and it says toxic links and disavow files. Can you please discuss toxic links? I just ran a report on Semrush. I have 7 toxic links and 100 potentially toxic links. What is the best practice, and should I disavow all of them? Now, this is, again, very common with Semrush, and what's problematic is that you'll have a blogger that might only have 100 linking root domains. 25 or 30 of those might immediately be declared toxic by Semrush, which, again, I love the fact that they have that tool, but as with many tools, and I know you've mentioned this before, Jim, it could be problematic. So let's talk a little bit about that. What would you say to someone like that? Would you ever take a tool's recommendation alone and format a disavowal list just from that?
No, never.
And let's explain why that is. Why would you do that?
Sure, it kind of goes back to that when a lot of places are saying, well, let's start with the values, that something that may have a low value doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. I would look at, let me go backwards a step. Do people need to do a disavow? I would say that the majority of people do not. My fear is that the majority of people that try and do a disavow are going to do more harm than good, because they're going to look at these types of metrics and try and determine if it's good or bad. If you've got that toxic link tool or whatever, if you're looking at that and there's those 10 links that are marked as toxic. I would look at more, what are those links? Do they fit other patterns of your backlinks? What is their Semrush organic value? I think someone had asked where to find that Semrush organic value. If you pretty much go to Semrush and put in a root URL and hit enter, right on that page, there's the organic value. And if that value is bad and it has lots of backlinks, that's the thing we're going to look at. I lost my train of thought. What was it we were talking about right before then?
Disavow.
Disavow. So don't. The majority of people, I think that the majority of people that do a disavow do more harm than good for their site. And Google has said, hey, we're really good at this now. And if we don't like links the majority of time, we're not going to count them. There has been, though, Google still does the manual penalties. We had a very large company that came to us a while ago that they were doing the disavow wrong because they were probably looking at things like the domain authority or what's toxic links. Why aren't those accurate? They're not taking into account the Semrush value. They're not taking into account if the site's ever been hit. They're not as much looking at patterns that are within there. So I guess the majority of the time I would say don't do a disavow. There's nothing to worry about. Google's not that bad at, very, very few sites get manual penalties. Unless you've been doing something yourself in the past, I really wouldn't worry about doing the disavow. If you're going to worry about it, so even with that advice, saying the majority of you don't need to worry about it, there's some of you that are going to be like, all right, well, I am going to worry about it. And so if you're going to worry about it, I use my own, we have our own tool that analyzes backlinks. I know there's a lot of other tools out there that analyze backlinks. I don't use those. I use my own. I'm looking at, again, things like the traffic from the link. I'm looking at all sorts of patterns. Are there, what is all the stuff that's duplicate as well? What's the stuff that appears to have been penalized? I'm looking at different things, and usually I'm very, very conservative. And so if I'm going to do a disavow for a site that hasn't been affected, I'm going to be as conservative as you can get. Like I might start with, let's look at all links that have never sent a visitor and that have an Semrush value of 0. And start with, and then go through just that filter and look for patterns. What's all the duplicate stuff? What's all the stuff on the same IP? What's all the stuff that was registered? I'm going to look through a whole bunch of patterns. And even though something matches a pattern, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. You then have to look at a pattern and be like, what is the user? What is the intent of that? Was this a spammy SEO intent? But the stuff that I disavow, especially if a site has never been hit, it's going to be a lot of the duplicate stuff or the stuff that's never sent a click and the stuff that has no Semrush value. But I worry that more people are doing a disavow and actually removing links that have links. They're so hard to get that you just don't want to go and use some tool and press some button and say these are bad, and so they must be bad. And there's some of those tools as well that do things like, hey, we're going to take all the users that have used our tool. We're going to kind of incorporate that data into our tool. Our tool is getting smarter. So now you've got 10,000 people's results that don't know how to use a tool or to analyze stuff using things like domain authority and page authority. And so now the tool isn't getting smarter, it's actually getting dumber because of that. And, I think if you're worrying about the disavow, chances are you don't. You don't need to. And, John Mueller had a great discussion with Marie Haynes and pretty much said that unless you really know what you're doing, unless you've seen examples of bad links, if you're talking with a company that has done lots of disavows before, and Casey, I think you were even in a group with me once where we used to show example links that you would submit a reconsideration request and Google would write back and say no, and here's an example link or 2 or 3. And
that's right.
There was a big group of us who were sharing those, so we all knew, hey, these are stuff that we know Google
doesn't like
is bad. Yeah, and here's the patterns of that, and here's what it is. And that's better than, and so if someone has seen bad examples, and by bad examples, I mean like examples that Google has shown, these are bad and here's why, that if you're just using some other metric and you don't know what Google has actually said is good and bad, then I wouldn't, I guess go to each one of those and be like, is it natural? Is it real? Or is it spammy? When I, again, when we look at backlinks, anything that's no followed, I don't care about. I don't even analyze anything that's no followed. And then it's looking at the live stuff and looking at patterns.
Exactly.
But
well, I think that's very good. And I do appreciate the more detailed we can be on that. But if you're on the call and you're just, again, you're putting together a disavow file just because the tool has told you to do that, and you don't have a penalty, or that you haven't built in these links yourself, or just because someone told you to do it, don't do it. It's a waste of your time. If really, you always could do more harm than good with that disavow file. At least seek out the opinion of a professional, someone who's an SEO.
I've seen links that are bright green, like in these tools, like these are good.
And they're terrible.
Like, no, that's like got penalized 7 years ago, and there's an ad block of sponsored links. And it's like, no, that's not good. And then I've seen stuff that's like bright red, like this is bad. And it's like, no, this is a Cub Scout website. It may not have a whole bunch of links to it, but like it's a real site. Like that was a real earned link. So no, I don't trust those tools.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna wrap things up here. We're gonna do one little final question here. If you guys could say what if as we're ending basically the second or nearing the second half of 2019. What should a blogger be concentrating on? Is it relationship link building? Is it working with qualified professionals? Is it publishing better and higher quality content? Is it understanding what high quality content is? All of the above? None of the above? What would you say? Give your best tips for these bloggers in the call who are still struggling with trying to pull in more links to their content and embracing and understanding link building in general.
I'll go first on this. I guess I would, if you're blogging and you're wanting to get links, which of course you need to get links, you need to get ranked. I guess I would look at writing different types of content. Look at writing that educational content. Look at writing the viral content. Look at writing the regular content for your user. Write long pieces. Have external links in that content that make sense. Have lots of original pictures. If you can have your own videos, if you can target for featured snippets, and people also ask and searches related to, it's more than just the top 10 links of what it used to be. There's all these new pieces coming in. Featured snippets we haven't really talked about. Last I checked, they're in 14% of all the search results. Videos went from something like 12% to 24% over the course of 2018 as far as showing up within the search results. You need those as well. Images, it is creating. I wouldn't create anything that was so-so. Anything that I would create, I'd make it the best resource. I know that sounds so cliche, but it's like, that is the trick. If you have a great established site as well, and you release a new page on it, there's a great chance that Google will rank that resource high right out of the gate. And if your user experience on that page are really good as well, then that page can often stay there. But you've got to do stuff to get the links. You have to write stuff that sometimes may be a bit outside of the box of what you're doing, and a bit of a different market than who you might traditionally think. I need to write about fast food stuff and sandwiches, just for an example. That's going to limit you to X amount of people to write to. But once you take that topic and say, all right, I'm going to write about cholesterol, and I could write 20 different things about cholesterol, and I'm going to write about ketchup, and I'm going to write about the history of fast food, and I'm going to write the history of McDonald's. I'm going to write all this other stuff that then I can reach out to those different markets to get those links as well, and then use that content to push the power to my content that I really want to rank as well.
And now that content has been mentioned, I'm going to bring up relationship building. And there are several reasons for that, especially for blogging. It pushes you to do more. It helps you do content research and see what others are doing. It helps you with backlinks because friends give backlinks to each other. It helps you on all of the discover opportunities you wouldn't have discovered without it. I've been doing relationship building for my whole life. I think that's a big aspect and big um, factor in my whole career that made it work. So I would go, don't be an island. Do relationship building every day. Social media, micro communities, core is a way to meet people, experts in your industry and beyond it in neighboring industries. So relationship building is what I would suggest doing on a daily basis. Of course, you need content to get your blog out there. Of course, that's the foundation. But relationship without putting that content in front of people who can link to it, you will not get links and you will not get rankings. So relationship building for me.
Fantastic. And on that note, I want to thank again Jim and Ann, both of you, for taking time out of your schedule to do this. We have a lot of fantastic resources shared, lots of great information. I know that people are going to get a value out of this. So on that note, thanks again for both of you. And we'll see all of you again next month. I believe that we have our next webinar is going to be on, let me check. Well, I'm going to have Semrush support give me some help here. But I believe that our next seminar is going to be in June with Arsen Rabinovich. We're going to be talking about, yeah, Arsen's a great guy. I know you know him. We're going to be doing a, geez, I can't even find it here. Yeah, here it is. So it's going to be on June 18th, Tuesday, June 18th, and it's the seminar is going to be on site auditing. I'll have to see if I can actually find it, and I'll paste it over here into the thread. So it's going to be great. Definitely sign up for that. I'll paste it over into the chat here on YouTube in a minute. And Jim, thanks so much again, and we'll see both of you again. Hopefully you guys are going to both be at PubCon Las Vegas this year. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes, we will.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. I'll be there as well. We can go ahead and drink our troubles away from the big bad Google.
Sounds great, Casey.
You guys take it easy. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.